Howdy, Caleb here. If you've seen the leaks for the General's Handbook that's about to come out, it's some pretty interesting stuff. So we're going to cover that in this video. First, I want to point out, I'm not going to cover the endless spell changes yet. I want to see the points on those. But one that really hurts us is the Cogs. Cogs got changed to where it no longer allows rerolls, so that really puts a damper on our Starbone lists. Starbone's still good, don't get me wrong, but your casting is going to be a lot less reliable without Cogs allowing you to get all the rerolls. So take that in consideration in your list going forward. You may save a few points there by taking Cogs out and putting in some more units. All right, so the General's Handbook. We saw some leaks come today, or maybe that was yesterday. I can't remember. And we have this new keyword, Andtorian Locus. And that's going to be a wizard hero with a wounds characteristic of 9 or less. That's not unique. Doesn't say anything about mounts, which, you know, the Galatian champions had in the last one. You couldn't be mounted. So that doesn't really affect the Seraphon, which is what we're going to focus on on this channel. But in the Seraphon army, we have Slanns that fit this category. I think that's going to be the one that we will see most often as our Andtorian Locus keyworded unit. Slann is going to be very good in that role. We also have the Starseer, the Skink Starseer, and the Skink Star Priest, which both also fit into this Andtorian Locus keyword. So as we look at that, those are the things that are going to get these special abilities. Here we have Optimal Focus. Basically, if you're going second, you get an extra cast or unbind, which is very nice. That gives you a little bit of extra oomph there for your heroes, especially if you're taking one of the smaller ones. Now you can either cast 2 or 3 spells with those skink casters. Also helps with the Slann too, because you can always use extra casts. That in Starbone allows you to get another CP, another Celestial Conjuration point. So don't underestimate that as you're trying to rank up all those Celestial Conjuration points, the summoning points. Very nice. If you don't have a wizard, then you can get an extra command point for going second. So here's where the stuff gets really interesting. Primal Magic. At the start of each hero phase, both players roll a dice. For each 4-up, each player receives 1 Primal Magic dice. So I roll a 4-up, you roll a 4-up. We both get a primal dice for that. So you can get up to 2 primal dice in the start of the hero phase. So over the course of a battle round, you could have up to 4 primal dice. There's some ways to get more than that. But keep that in mind as we're going through here. In general, you'll probably have 1. So that's probably what, it'll average out. After a player attempts to cast or unbind a spell, or after a player attempts to dispel an endless spell, they can roll 1 of their Primal Magic dice. If they do so, add the result to the casting, unbinding, or dispelling roll. That player can continue to roll additional Primal dice until the caster suffers a Primal Miscast. See below. Or there are no more Primal Magic dice to be rolled. So this is a buff, just a free buff that comes here for casting and unbinding or dispelling. So very powerful, especially because Seraphon is a powerful casting army, especially the Starborn side. There's a lot of magic going on. And so this is going to help us buff up that casting even more. The next paragraph here is important to kind of point out. If you have a reroll, then you can reroll, but you can't use a primal dice after the reroll. So you kind of need to look at what your casting attempt was and judge if you want to use a reroll, because we have plenty of ways to get rerolls. Well, not plenty now that Cogs is gone. We have some ways to get rerolls. Or do I need to use a primal dice? The next paragraph there is about the primal miscast. If you have a 1 on your cast and you use one of your primal dice and that one rolls a 1, that is now a primal miscast, and you're going to suffer D3 plus 3 mortal wounds, and every other unit within 3 inches suffers D3 mortal wounds as well. In addition, the caster cannot attempt to cast any more spells in that phase. Just absolutely brutal. This primal miscast is not good. I'm going to talk about that here in a second. The last paragraph here, if there's also a what's it called here? There's some word for it. I can't find it. Anyway, if you roll sixes the same way, so in your casting attempt, you have a 6, you roll a primal dice, and you get a 6, the spell goes off and it can't be unbind, but you can attempt to cast any more spells in that phase. And then as a weird bonus, both players receive 1 primal magic dice. So a decent ability that it goes off and it can't be unbound, but you can't cast any more spells. So you got to think about this if you roll any 6s on your casting roll. So let's play this out here in a logical order. You're rolling a casting dice, 2 dice. You're trying to cast a spell. If you don't roll a 1 or a 6, feel free to use primal dice because there's no risk here. It's just all reward. And so if you have one and this is an important spell, use it. If you have a 1, you probably don't want to risk it with the primal dice unless this spell is critical to your turn. It's still just a 1 in 6 chance you'll roll a 1, but it's probably not worth it. If you roll a 6, I'm not rolling a primal dice. I'm not going to chance it unless this is my last spell to cast. Or if this is a caster that only has 1 spell, then I might use a primal dice. But in general, if you roll a 1 or 6 on your casting roll, you're not going to use a primal dice because it's just not worth it. Especially if you're talking Starbone, you definitely don't want a primal miscast, and you definitely don't want to roll those 2 6s because that could end your important strategy of all these spell casts that you have laid out with the Slann, with the Croak, with all your wizards. So keep that in mind. One unit I do kind of like using primal miscasts on would be the Troglodyte with like a Cosmic Crush. You've teleported your Troglodyte. Now you wanting to get off Cosmic Crush, you're within range of the enemy for your spell casts. He's only got 1 spell. And so this is a great place to use a primal dice because you want that spell to go off just to do some mortal wounds. So a nice little unit to use primal dice on. So I like that. You don't have to use your primal dice on an Andtorian Locus, so you can use those on Croak. You can use those on your other wizards, not just your Andtorian Locus wizards. So some very interesting play here. It's going to be a very heavy magic edition of this GHB, which is okay for us because we play into that magic very well. This also, never underestimate using these primal dice on unbinds. We are an excellent magical defense army with our Slann and Croak being able to unbind anywhere on the board. And so add in those primal dice and you can shut down a lot of spells in the opponent's hero phase. So that is a very good addition. Here is a unique enhancements. This is replacing the aspects of the champion. This is our unique enhancement for this edition. But these, not everybody gets these. You only get these if you don't have a wizard in your army. So if you don't have a wizard, you're not going to be playing with all these primal dice. You get to take one of these Nullstone Adornments. I think this would be relevant to Seraphon because, you might have a Coalesced army that doesn't have a wizard. I've played a couple games already where I don't even take a wizard in Coalesced, and it still feels like it plays okay. I'm going to be real tempted to put a Slann into my Coalesced list regardless now because of all these buffs, but if you don't want to do it, there is some play here. So this first one, the Nullstone Icon, the bearer of this enhancement can unbind 1 spell or attempt to dispel 1 endless spell in the enemy hero phase in the same manner as a wizard. And if you're successful at that, you get to keep going. You get to unbind another spell. So very nice there. Gives you a way to play in the unbind game, even without having a wizard. So free enhancement. This is one I think is my favorite one because it just always has utility in the game. The next one, Pouch of Null Dust, when I first read this, I was thinking, man, this is really strong. I think I've changed my mind on that. Once per battle at the start of the hero phase, you can say that the bearer will use their pouch of null dust. If you do so until the end of that phase, unmodified casting rolls that include a double 1, a double 2, or a double 3 are treated as miscasts. Or if a Primal Magic dice was rolled as part of the casting roll as Primal Miscast. In addition, roll a dice for each endless spell on the battlefield. On a 5-up, that endless spell is dispelled. So the big thing there is forcing those miscasts. So you're going to do this at the start of your opponent's hero phase. You'd pop this and you'd say, hey, if you roll any double 1s, 2s, or 3s, those are miscasts. And now if you roll into a primal dice, that's going to be a primal miscast. So it really kind of forces them to really rethink what they're going to do in spellcasting. Now, this could really hurt like a Seraphon list, but I don't think you're too worried about that. If they're popping this, you're just not going to do primal dice. If you roll a 1, 2, or 3 on your normal casting, you're definitely not doing a primal dice. That's for sure. It can hurt for your normal casting. None of these would go off in general. Maybe a double 3 would with all your bonuses. So that is going to hurt your miscast some. But it's only once per battle. And so they're really going to try to shut down one casting phase. This feels like it's designed specifically to hit like Starbone or Tzeentch or these magic heavy armies. This one will do that for one hero phase. Polished Nullstone Pebble is decent. It basically gives you like a sort of like a 4-up ignore to a spell. You can pass it off to somebody else if you need to. So a nice little way to avoid getting hit by some of these spells. So I like these as a way to combat if you don't have a wizard in your list. I think we're probably going to always have wizards in our list for the most part now, especially in this edition, because there's just so much play that can go into that. Realm Shaper Magic, we've talked about one of these spells before, but we've got some text here that I think makes a difference. You pick one spell, or you can pick one spell from the lore of Primal Frost, which is this realm sphere magic, for each Andtorian Locus in your army, instead of picking one spell from another spell lore they know. So you have to pick this instead, or you don't have to, but if you're going to pick one of these, you pick it instead of one of your lore spells. That kind of hurts because let's look at the Coalesced side. In Coalesced side, you're taking a Slann. You already have to try to pick between his two good spells. If you can't take Celestial Empower Celestite or Telepathic Summons because you're wanting to take one of these, the Slann's really not getting as much use out of him as you could because his War Scroll spells are okay. Doesn't really help him much if he's your only caster. So I don't like that aspect, but we're going to talk about it here in a second. There's ways to get around that. Our book allows us to kind of get around that, still take the spells that we want, and have the lore spells that we like. So on the Starbone side of things, I think you're probably... I don't know that... You're kind of in the same situation because Comet's Call exists on the lore spell list that you want to take that over some of these. But there's some fun play here. So let's look at these spells. Hoarfrost, we did a video about that. This allows you to change the characteristic of a hit to wound or rend from anywhere from 1 to 3. A very powerful spell. Getting things onto a 3 rend that don't normally have that is just incredibly good. Incredibly good. You're going to see units in list specifically for this spell. It does have a high casting value of 8, which is difficult for most armies. Not as much for us because we have so many pluses to cast. So Hoarfrost can usually, you should be at least like a +2 on your Slann, which is who would probably be casting this pretty easily. So that one, and you can get a Slann to reroll if you need it. Rupture is an interesting spell. Rupture is the second one here. It has a casting value of 10. Very high. Now, keep in mind, all of these can be adjusted by Primal Magic. So I think that's important to keep in mind here. A lot of these spells, I think, are costed. Their casting value is costed with Primal casts in mind. So Rupture is a spell, casting value of 10, range of 18. Pick a endless spell, a predatory endless spell, or an incarnate wholly within range, invisible to the caster. That target immediately becomes wild and cannot be picked to be controlled or bonded for the rest of the game, rest of the battle. This to me seems like you will take this if you have a very specific goal in mind. I'm going to make that incarnate wild. I can't imagine purposefully taking this for an endless spell, but you could use it defensively if an endless spell is getting in your face from your opponent. But it seems to me like I'm purposefully making my incarnate wild and then sending it across the board kind of play. The next one, Merciless Blizzard, is pretty crazy, but it's got a lot of caveats here. Has a casting value of 12. Whew, that's high. So you definitely need some primal dice to get this one to go off. Range of 12, short range. If successfully cast, pick one enemy unit within range, visible to caster. That unit suffers 4d6 mortal wounds. Ooh. But for each roll of a 1, the caster also suffers d3 mortal wounds. So it has a little bit of a downside to it. And those mortals can't be negated that you're doing back to yourself. The range of the spell cannot be modified and must be measured from the caster, even if an ability would allow you to measure it from elsewhere. This one's targeted directly at us, Seraphon. So very short range, incredible damage potential. It might just be 12 mortal wounds on average, but that's still great. I could see this being quite good in Seraphon because we have ability to teleport a caster and then try to cast this. So imagine a situation in Starbone where, Croak teleports the Slann, who is at, should be at about a +2 if you can get everything right. And then he is casting this Merciless Blizzard and popping a couple of primal casting dice to make sure this goes off. Pretty nice there. So you can teleport him outside of 9 of something and still be in range to hit a unit with this Merciless Blizzard. So maybe playing a little teleporting assassin from the Slann could be fun. Overall, I think Hoarfrost is still my favorite. It just has so much use there. Command traits. If your general is an Andtorian Locus, you can pick one command trait from the following list and give it to your general. As we look at this, we got to think about Starbone has such good command traits for Slann already. So these are going to have to compete with that. On the Coalesced side, the Saurus have great command traits. So is it worth taking a Slann as your general, missing out on the Saurus ones to take these? Shaman of the Chilled Lands is the first one. This general knows all the spells from the lore of Primal Frost. All right, so they gave us this requirement here on the lore that you have to if you take one of these, you can't take one of your other lore spells. But we have a way out of that right here with the first command trait. So the general knows all the spells from the spell lore of Primal Frost. So now you take this command trait, you can take your own spell lore spell, and then he knows all the spells from this one. So that right there lets you get all access to all those spells and still keep your spell lore. I really like that one for a Slann as a general. Probably just in Coalesced, because in Starbone, you've still got better options than this. Next one, Eye of the Blizzard. On a 5-up, you gain an extra primal dice. I don't think you'd take this one. Chill to the Bone. If you suffer a miscast or primal miscast on a 3-up, you ignore it. Decent with the number of spell casts we're taking. Could be useful, especially if you're going to be maybe offensive with your Slann here. You're going to be casting a lot of stuff that you want to go off. Maybe you're going to be casting a lot of primal dice with your Slann. Maybe you're going to be teleporting him, trying to do that Blizzard spell. This one could be a good one so you don't hurt yourself on those primal miscasts. This next one, though, Eater of Magic, I really, really like in Coalesced. So, I mean, it'd be good anywhere, but I think I like it in Coalesced best. Each time this general successfully unbinds a spell, roll a dice. On a 5-up, the caster no longer knows that spell and may not cast it again for the rest of the battle. Ooh, that's brutal. Making your opponent forget spells. And this is so good for a Slann who's unbinding anywhere on the board and has a lot of unbinds at a +1 natively. So you're going to be unbinding stuff. Then you can use Primal Dice. Now, you're only going to make them forget it on a 5, but we're unbinding enough spells in our army that you're going to make them forget some spells throughout the game. So I like this a lot. The reason I like this in Coalesced is because you end up doing a little bit more defensive like buffs and stuff onto your units, not quite as much damage. And so this command trait kind of leans into the Slann being more of that defensive unit, wanting to do lots of unbinds. I still don't think it competes with the Starbone ones. I think Starbone ones are still better for the command traits than this one. So, but if you're taking a Slann in Coalesced as your general, we have some great options here. Shaman, I really like, and Eater of Magic, I really like on that Slann. Here are the Starborn ones I wanted to just reemphasize. I think if you're taking Starborn Slann as your general and giving them an artifact, these are the ones that you have to take. I mean, they're too good not to take. The Lord of Celestial Resonance, each time this general successfully casts a spell that's not unbound or successfully unbinds a spell or successfully dispels an endless spell, you receive 2 cosmic power points instead of 1. That's just too powerful with the strategy that we're doing in Starborn, racking up those cosmic power points to summon things in. It's still better than the other ones on the Andtorian Locus. So you're still going to pair that Lord of Celestial Resonance on your Slann with Spacefolder Stave. Spacefolder Stave is still just incredibly good because it allows you to drop a unit outside of 7 instead of 9. And it's just so good. So Spacefolder Stave is excellent. I don't think you'll change much up on the Starborn side of things for command traits and artifacts based on the Andtorian Locus stuff. But on the Coalesced side of things, I talked about those 2 that I really like. The Shaman of Chilled Lands. If I'm taking my Slann as my general, I'm really looking at those 2 from the Andtorian Locus options. Knowing all the spell lords are Primal Frosted Good, Eater of Magic, just fantastic. I really like that one. But don't forget about here one from the Coalesced options. This journal knows 2 extra spells from the lore of Ancient Domains. I actually like this one better than Shaman because if I'm looking at my Slann and I want Horror Frost on the Slann, so I'm taking that as my spell lore spell. Master Material Planes allows me to know 2 extra spells from the lore of Ancient Domains. So I'm taking Empower Celestite, and I'm taking Telepathic Summons, and then I also get the Horror Frost. So I'm taking the 3 spells I want on my Slann using Master of Material Plane. So if I'm looking to buff up my source units with my Slann, I think I'm taking Master of Material Plane so I can get all the buffs that I need. I get all the movement stuff I need from that Slann. So all of a sudden, this Slann, I really like this as a general in Coalesced. I've been playing every game so far with the Source unit as my general. This is going to make me play my Slann as my general on the Coalesced side of things. If you're doing that, you can take an artifact on them, and I think this artifact helps out with the strategy that you're doing here. Itchy Grubs, whatever you want to call it. At the start of each hero phase, you heal 1 wound allocated to the bear. In addition, in your hero phase, you can reroll 1 casting roll, 1 dispelling roll for the bear, and in the enemy hero phase, you can reroll 1 unbinding roll. So you've got some rerolls here. You're going to be casting lots of spells. You've got your primal dice. Makes the Slann a very powerful caster. I also like Itchy Grubs with Eater of Magic because now you're like getting really good unbinds. You know, if you unbind it, or if you just need a little bit of extra juice, roll a primal dice. Or if you want to re-roll it before that, if you don't want to spend your primal dice, use a Itchy Grubs to re-roll it, and you're going to be unbinding lots of stuff. So I think Slann in Coalesced just got a whole lot better in this edition and makes me really want to take him. I don't know that much changed in Starborn. I think you're still taking kind of the same stuff. Some core battalions that they had. The first one was the Andtorian Acolytes. This one you can take up to 3 of the heroes that have less than 10 wounds and are not unique, don't have a mount. At the start of the hero phase, if you have 2 or more of them on the battlefield, you roll an extra dice, and on a 3-up, you get an extra Primal Magic dice. Good if you're just, if you got high drops and you just want some extra Primal dice, throw them in there. If you're going low drop, then you probably won't look into it too much. The next one, Magic Hunters. You're looking at 1 hero, 2 infantry, and a monster if you want it. If you're fighting a wizard, you can pick 1 melee weapon profile and add 1 to the attacks of that melee. But you have to put all your attacks into the wizard. So this would be good for, well, this is good for any unit. I think if you're going high drops, if you don't care too much about your drops, then absolutely put this in there, because there's going to be a lot of wizards in the game now. This does make things like our Troglodyte more susceptible. So one of our strategies is teleporting the Troglodyte right in front of the enemy line, buffing him up, and then hoping that the Troglodyte holds on. This does make him a lot more susceptible to incoming fire, because you're going to have these melee units coming smashing into that Troglodyte, and you're going to hope that your buffs hold up. But if they're getting extra attacks from against that Troglodyte, he could go down a little bit faster. So keep that in mind. Some good battalions, nothing breaking the bank, nothing that's going to get you away from a battle regiment if you're planning on going into a 1-drop. Starbone side of things, you can't really do a 1-drop. You'll at least be at a 2-drop using a double battle regiment. I don't know that I would pull too much out of that. You could, you've got 2, Croak and Trog, kind of forces you into at least 2 battle regiments. So, they're okay. Grand strategies. I won't go through all these. I think the 2 that I'm really interested in are Spellcasting Savant. When the battle ends, you complete this grand strategy if the model picked to be your general is an Andtorian Locus and that unit has not been slain. As I'm taking a Slann in Coalesced, I think this is a fairly easy one. Not necessarily easy, but you can kind of lean into it a little bit. Because he's your general, now you've got guard you can use as battle line. Throw in a couple units of guard. This Slann is going to be very difficult to kill with a bunch of wounds to pass off damage to. So unless you're just absolutely getting tabled, it's going to be hard to kill this Slann. He might be sitting back at the board, guarded by all the Saurus guard, and it'll take a lot for the opponent to kill him. So this one might be a good one to take. On Starbone side of things, if he's your general as well, you're going to have the same thing. You're going to have guard. You're going to have lots of units on the board. They've got other threats to worry about. They're going to be trying to kill Croak. They're going to be focused on a lot of things other than your Slann. You have enough wizards. You might be able to get this one fairly easy in that one. The other one I think I really like here is the Slaughter of Sorcery. When the battle ends, you complete this grand strategy if there are no wizards on the battlefield. I think this is an interesting one. If you're going Coalesced and you're not taking a wizard, you're going to be in a lot of melee combat. You're going to be smashing into the opponent. You're going to have plenty of chances to kill their wizards as they're trying to move them up, score objectives and things. Throw in a Basildon now with the Solar Engine. And, those wizards can't hide anymore. There's no Galatian champions where they can't be shot. So those Basildons with Solar Engines are all of a sudden going to be wizard snipers in this new edition. So I think you could play into that as well. If I'm not starting with any wizards, all I've got to do is kill your wizards, then that one kind of makes for a decent play, I think. There will be some armies that they may have one really tough wizard, and that might be difficult to do. But I think that one is easier than some of the other grand strategies that we have. Battle tactics. I'm not going to go through all these again. We may do another video on some of these, but I think some of these are worth kind of highlighting. One of them is, I think, Magical Dominance. So this one's an interesting one. You complete this battle tactic at the end of your turn if a friendly wizard unit successfully casts 1 or more spells and none of those spells cast by any units in your army were unbound. So I kind of wanted to look at this one because at first I thought, that's terrible. Why would you ever take that? Because everybody's going to have a chance to unbind it. But this seems like you're going first, turn 1. I've lined up one of my guys out of range of your unbinds, and I'm going to get this super easy. I think you're going to see a lot of people playing Magical Dominance turn 1. And what's interesting is that's not going to work against Seraphon. I think people are never going to take this against us if we have a Slann on the board because we've got board-wide unbinds. They can't deploy away from our unbinds. And so just the nature of our army, I think, excludes that from a lot of our opponents. So interesting one there. I feel like there was another one. Oh, Magical Mayhem. This one is like just so easy for Starbone. Pick one enemy unit on the battlefield. You complete this battle attack if that unit is destroyed by damage inflicted by a spell or the abilities of an endless spell. I mean, we have so many casts doing mortal wounds. Magical Mayhem is incredibly easy for Starbone to get. I felt like there was one more that I wanted to look at. Oh, Surround and Destroy. Pick 3 different friendly units on the battlefield and complete this battle tactic at the end of your turn if each of those units is wholly within 6 of a different battlefield edge and 2 or more of those units are wholly outside your territory. Because you have to pick units on the battlefield, this does get a little bit harder. We can't just drop things in or ambush like Chameleon Skinks to get this one. But with a little bit of planning ahead, you can get this one fairly easy, I think, especially with our teleport. If you're looking to score this late game, you can easily teleport into this, I think, and make it work. So an interesting pick there. If you do have Hunters of Huanche in your army, you can set this up because, drop them down. Nobody's going to dedicate anything to go kill those, and they can't shoot them from across the board. So you can set this up for the next turn if you want to. So an interesting play there. All right. That's the end. I think there was one other thing I wanted to highlight. I forgot to mention this. On Primal Magic, I wanted to make note of this. Some of our spells rely on a 10 or higher to cast. What specifically Comet's Call, but also Celestial Harmony, I think, also does that too. There may be 1 or 2 others. But Comet's Call specifically. If you're casting Comet's Call is a great one to use Primal Magic on. Let's say you cast it on an 8 or a 9. You didn't roll a 1, so you're not worried about the Primal miscast. Go ahead and roll that Primal dice because you want to push that over that 10 plus cast. And it doesn't say an unmodified 10 plus to cast. So you can use the Primal dice to buff up Comet's Call. That's very nice. We have lots of other pluses to cast, but Primal Magic will help with that Comet's Call. If you can't remember Comet's Call, if you normally it's D3 units take D3 mortal wounds. If you cast it on a 10 or higher, then it's D6 units take D3 mortal wounds. So a potential doubling of your damage output there for that spell. So very, very good for Primal Miscast. All right, I think that's it for today. Some very interesting rules here coming out in the new General's Handbook. I think we are positioned well for it in Seraphon, and so I look forward to casting some spells. We are quite good at that. So, all right. I hope our FAQ and points come out soon. It's bound to be soon. Hopefully they don't hurt us too bad. Hopefully telepathic summons doesn't get hurt. Hopefully the Troglodon teleport doesn't get hurt either. So, all right, guys. We'll see y'all next time.